The message came at midnight Earth time. It traveled across the cold darkness of space for 11 days before it reached human ears. The signal was weak. It was broken. But the voice inside it was filled with fear. Elder sat alone in her office high above the clouds of Earth. The city lights below her windows sparkled like tiny stars. She was 63 years old, and she had spent her whole life working to bring humanity into the galaxy. Now, as she listened to the message for the third time, her hands began to shake. The voice belonged to a creature called. He was an ambassador of the people, had never met her. She had only seen pictures of them in the files from the Galactic Assembly. They were tall and thin, with skin like polished silver. They had 4 arms and eyes that glowed soft blue. The Assembly called them artists, poets, healers. They had no army. They had no weapons. They believed in peace. And now they were dying. "Please," said in the recording. His voice broke as he spoke. "We have asked the Assembly for help. They will not come. They have surrounded our world. Our cities are burning. Our children are hiding in caves underground. We do not know who will hear this message. We do not know if anyone will care. But if you can hear us, please, we beg you, help us." The message ended, closed her eyes. She knew about everyone in the galaxy knew about they were conquerors. They moved from world to world, taking everything they wanted. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. When they came, species died or became slaves. The Galactic Assembly was afraid of them, too afraid to fight. Picked up her communicator and made a call. Admiral was on the bridge of his flagship when the call came. The ship was called the Sovereign Wrath, and it was the largest warship humanity had ever built. It floated in orbit above Mars, surrounded by 71 other vessels. This was the first expeditionary fleet. These were the best ships and the best soldiers Earth had to offer. Was 51 years old. His hair was, and his face was hard from years of service. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth before humanity reached the stars. He had seen what violence could do to people. He had also seen what happened when good people did nothing. He listened to the message in silence. His officers stood around him. Captain, his second in command, watched his face carefully. She was younger than him, only 38, but she was one of the finest officers in the fleet. Lieutenant Wu stood near the tactical station. He was quiet and serious, a man who thought in numbers and angles. Chief Engineer waited near the door, his arms crossed. Marine Commander stood with his soldiers behind him. When the message ended, no one spoke. Finally looked its face on the screen. What did the Assembly say? Its voice was bitter. They said it is not our concern. They are not important enough. They are too strong. They told us to stay out of it. Nodded slowly. He had expected this answer. The Galactic Assembly had never treated humanity with respect. When humans first made contact with other species, the Assembly called them primitives, dangerous animals. They refused to give Earth full membership. They looked at humanity and saw only violence in their past. Maybe they were right. Humans had a bloody history. They had fought each other for thousands of years. They had nearly destroyed their own planet. But they had also learned something from all that pain. They had learned that some things were worth fighting for. "How far is Prime?" asked. Lieutenant Wu answered quickly. 14 days at maximum speed, Admiral. Looked at the star map on the main screen. Prime was a small world on the edge of explored space. It was far from Earth, far from any help. They had no allies. They had no protectors. They had only their art and their kindness, and that would not save them from the... Captain stepped forward. "Sir, they have over 100 ships in that system. We have 72. Their technology is more advanced than ours. If we go there, we might not come back." Turned to look at her. "I know. The Assembly will condemn us. They might punish Earth. This could start a war with the entire galaxy." "I know." Paused, then she straightened her back and lifted her chin. "When do we leave, Admiral?" Almost smiled. He looked at the rest of his officers. Wu was already calculating the jump coordinates. was calling the engine room to prepare for full power, was checking his weapon. Spoke from the screen. "Are you sure about this? Once you go, there is no turning back. The assembly will never forgive us." Admiral thought about the voice in the message. He thought about the alien ambassador begging for someone to listen. He thought about the children hiding in caves while their world burned above them. He thought about what it meant to be human. He said quietly, "There is a species out there that is about to be destroyed. They have done nothing wrong. They cannot fight back, and they asked for help." He paused. "If we ignore them, we are no better than the assembly. We are no better than the... I did not become a soldier to watch innocent people die while I do nothing." Was silent for a long moment, then she nodded. "Go save them and come home alive." The call ended. Turned to his crew. "All ships begin departure procedures. We jump in 6 hours." He looked out the window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, a world was burning. Somewhere out there, someone was crying for help. Humanity was going to answer. Within the hour, the fleet began to move. 72 warships, built by a species that had learned war in blood and fire, powered their engines and turned toward the darkness. Families on Earth watched the news and prayed. Soldiers wrote letters to their loved ones. Captains studied maps of the system. And on a dying world far across the galaxy, they looked up at their burning sky and waited for the end. They did not know that help was coming. They did not know that a species they had never met was about to risk everything for them. But the humans knew, and that was enough. The jump into hyperspace was like falling into a river of light. The stars stretched into long lines, and then everything turned white. The sovereign wrath shook as it pushed through the barrier between normal space and the strange dimension beyond. Admiral stood on the bridge with his hands behind his back. He had made this jump many times before, but it never stopped feeling strange. Humans were not meant to travel like this. Their bodies were built for solid ground, for blue skies and green trees. Yet here they were, flying through the impossible, racing toward a war they had chosen. The journey would take 14 days. 14 days to prepare. 14 days to think about death. Walked through his ship during the first week. He visited every section, talked to every crew member. He wanted them to know their commander. He wanted them to see that he was just a man like them. A man who was afraid but refused to let fear control him. He found Captain in the training room. She was practicing combat moves alone, her body moving like water. Sweat covered her face, but she did not stop when entered. "You should rest," said. "I will rest when they are dead," replied. She finished her routine and reached for a towel. "Admiral, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Why are we really doing this?" Looked at him with serious eyes. "They mean nothing to us. We have never traded with them. We have never spoken to them. They are strangers on the other side of the galaxy." Thought about the question. It was a fair one. Many people on Earth were asking the same thing. Why should human soldiers die for aliens they had never met? "When I was young," said slowly, "there was a fire in my neighborhood. The building next to ours caught flames in the middle of the night. I was 12 years old. I woke up and saw the orange light through my window." He paused. A woman was standing on a balcony holding her baby. The fire was below her. She could not escape. She was screaming for help. Listened without speaking. I did not know that woman. She was a stranger, but I ran outside anyway. Many people ran, strangers helping strangers. We caught the baby when she dropped it. We found a ladder and helped her climb down. We did not ask if she could pay us. We did not ask what country she came from. We just helped because she needed help. Looked at the steel walls around him. That is what makes us human, Captain, not our ships, not our weapons. We help because help is needed. If we lose that, we lose everything. Was quiet for a long time, then she nodded. "I understand, Admiral." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Wu spent every hour studying He read every report, analyzed every battle they had ever fought. They were strong. Their ships were faster, their shields more powerful. They had conquered dozens of species across the galaxy. But Wu noticed something interesting. They had never lost a battle because they had never faced a true enemy. Every species they attacked was weak. Every species surrendered quickly. They did not know what it meant to fight someone who refused to give up. Wu brought his findings to Admiral. Sir, they rely on fear. They win because their enemies lose hope. But their tactics are simple. They surround, they threaten, and they wait for surrender. They have never fought an enemy that attacks first. Studied the data, so we hit them before they expect it. Yes, sir, hard and fast. We make them understand that this fight will cost them. The value survival above all. If we hurt them badly enough, they might break. Smiled grimly. They think we are primitives. Let us show them what primitives can do. Chief Engineer worked without sleep. He and his team moved through every ship in the fleet, checking engines, reinforcing armor, preparing weapons. Human ships were not elegant like the vessels of other species. They were ugly. They were heavy. They looked like iron beasts covered in guns. But they were built to survive. They were built by a species that had learned war in the hardest way possible. Every plate of armor, every missile, every reactor core was designed for one purpose: to keep fighting when everything else failed. Found in the cargo bay, watching his Marines train, the soldiers moved in tight formations, their weapons ready, their faces grim. They were the best fighters humanity had ever produced. Each one had volunteered for this mission. Each one knew they might not return. Your men look ready, said. Nodded. They are. They have never faced human soldiers in close combat. They do not know what is coming. Do you think we can win? Turned to look at the engineer. His eyes were cold and calm. We will win or we will die trying. There is no other option. The fleet traveled on. Days passed. The crew prepared. Admiral gave speeches to keep their spirits high. He told them about their art, their medicine, their peaceful ways. He told them that somewhere ahead, millions of innocent beings were waiting for rescue. He told them that they were the only hope those beings had. On the last day before arrival, gathered his senior officers in the war room. A hologram of the system floated above the table. 120 red dots represented the fleet. A small blue planet represented Prime, and 72 green dots represented humanity's answer. When we arrive, said, we will face the largest enemy force in human history. We are outnumbered. The galaxy believes we cannot win. He looked at each of his officers. But I have seen what humans can do when they fight for something they believe in. We are not just soldiers. We are the children of a world that survived ice ages, wars, plagues, and near extinction. We are still here. We will always be here. And tomorrow they will learn that. Captain stood at attention. The fleet is ready, Admiral. Lieutenant Wu had his data pad in hand. All firing solutions are calculated. Chief Engineer crossed his arms. Every ship is running at full power. Commander put his fist over his heart. The Marines await your orders. Looked at the hologram one more time. Then he gave the command that would change the galaxy forever. All ships prepare for dropout. We attack on arrival. The countdown began. In the cold silence of hyperspace, 72 human warships rushed toward their destiny. Their crews said prayers in 100 different languages. They held photos of their families. They wrote final messages that might never be sent. And somewhere at the end of their journey, they waited, arrogant and confident, certain that no one would dare challenge them. They were about to learn the truth about humanity, and the truth would terrify them. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like wolves bursting from a forest. 72 warships appeared at the edge of the system in a flash of white light. Their hulls were dark, covered in weapons and armor plates. They moved in perfect formation, spreading out like the fingers of a giant hand. And before them, floating in the darkness around a dying planet, the armada waited. 120 ships turned to face the new arrivals. They were beautiful in a terrible way, long and curved, with hulls of polished black metal. Their engines glowed red like demon eyes. Each ship was covered in sensors and weapons that human technology could barely understand. At the center of the fleet sat the Eternal Dominion. It was the flagship of Warlord, the conqueror of 17 worlds. The ship was massive, 3 times larger than any human vessel. Its presence alone had made entire species surrender. Sat on his throne and watched the strange ships appear on his screens. He was tall and powerful, with 4 arms and skin like rough stone. His eyes were yellow, and they burned with anger. No one had ever dared interrupt his conquests before. "What are those?" he demanded. His officers studied their sensors. "Unknown, Warlord. The ships match no design in our database. They appear to be primitive, crude construction, basic weapons. They come from a system called Sol." "Humans," said the word like it was a disease. "I have heard of them. The Galactic Assembly calls them savages, animals who barely left their planet." He laughed, and it was an ugly sound. "They have come to die." On the Sovereign Wrath, Admiral stood at the center of the bridge. Screens surrounded him, showing the enemy fleet in perfect detail. The ships were larger, faster, more advanced. Every logical calculation said humanity should retreat. But was not thinking about logic. He was looking at Prime through the main window. The planet was burning. Great fires covered its surface, visible even from space. Smoke rose from its cities like black fingers reaching toward the sky. "Sir," Lieutenant Wu said quietly, "the flagship is hailing us." "Put it through." The face of Warlord appeared on the screen. He looked at with amusement like a giant looking at an insect. "Human," he said, "you have made a terrible mistake. This world belongs to the Empire. Leave now and I will let you live. Stay and you will join thee in death." Did not move. He did not blink. "I am Admiral of the United Earth Command. This system is now under our protection. Withdraw your forces immediately or face destruction." Stared at him, then he laughed so hard his whole body shook. "Protection? You? 70 pathetic ships against my fleet." He leaned forward, his yellow eyes glowing with cruelty. "You do not even know what war is, human. Your species is nothing but children playing with toys. I have burned 100 worlds. I will add yours to the collection." Admiral was silent for a moment, then he spoke and his voice was ice. "You talk too much." He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. Every officer was watching him. Every sailor was waiting. This was the moment. There was no going back. "All ships," said calmly, "weapons free." The human fleet opened fire. On Prime, in a cave deep underground, Ambassador heard the explosions through the rock above him. He was surrounded by hundreds of his people. Children, elderly, wounded. They had been hiding for weeks, waiting for death that seemed certain to come. But the explosions were not on the surface. They were in space. Something was happening in orbit. Ran to the emergency sensor station. It was damaged, barely working, but it still showed a blurry image of the space above. And what he saw made him freeze in disbelief. Ships were fighting the strange, ugly ships he had never seen before. They were outnumbered, but they were attacking with a fury that seemed impossible. Missiles flew through the void. Beams of energy cut through shields. Explosions lit up the darkness like new stars being born. "What are those?" a young asked. Could not answer. He did not know. But for the first time in weeks, he felt something he had forgotten how to feel. He felt hope. The battle was chaos, beautiful, terrible chaos. Captain commanded the destroyer Indomitable from its bridge. Her ship was faster than the cruisers, able to weave through their formations like a fish through water. She fired constantly, never stopping, never slowing. "Target that cruiser on the left," she shouted. "Fire all forward batteries." The Indomitable's guns roared. Kinetic rounds, accelerated to incredible speeds, slammed into the cruiser's shields. The shields flickered, failed. The second volley hit the hull directly, tearing it open. The ship exploded. "That's three," yelled. "Keep moving, don't let them lock onto us." Across the battlefield, Lieutenant Wu sat at his station on the Sovereign Wrath, his fingers dancing across his console. He calculated every shot, every angle, every weakness in the enemy formation. His mind worked faster than any computer, seeing patterns that could not predict. "Admiral," he said, "enemy cruiser group on the starboard side is out of position. If we concentrate fire there, we can break their formation." "Do it," ordered. 20 human ships turned together and unleashed their weapons on the vulnerable cruisers. They were not prepared. They were used to enemies that ran, that hid, that begged for mercy. They did not know how to respond to an enemy that attacked harder when wounded. 12 ships died in the first 3 minutes of the battle. Warlord watched his fleet burn with growing horror. This was impossible. These primitives, these animals, were destroying his ships. His perfect, superior warships were exploding like toys. "What is happening?" he screamed at his officers. "Why can't we stop them?" "Their weapons are crude," an officer replied with fear in his voice, "but extremely powerful. They bypass our shields through kinetic impact. We have no defense against such primitive tactics." "Then destroy them. We have more ships." But they were already falling apart. Their captains, so used to easy victories, panicked when they saw their allies dying. Some ships broke formation. Others tried to retreat without orders. The beautiful, perfect fleet became a confused mess. And the humans kept coming. They did not slow down. They did not pause. They attacked with a ferocity that seemed inhuman. On the Sovereign Wrath, Admiral watched the battle unfold. His ship had taken damage. Fires burned in 3 sections. 20 of his crew were dead, but they were winning. Against all odds, against every prediction, they were winning. "Press the attack," ordered. "Do not give them time to recover. Show them what happens when they threaten the innocent." The human fleet surged forward, driving deeper into the formation. Ships died on both sides, but they died faster. Their confidence shattered. Their courage failed. And across the galaxy, species watched through long-range sensors as the impossible happened. A young, primitive species was defeating the Empire. A species that should have been easy prey was fighting back with fire and fury. The universe would never be the same. The battle raged for 6 hours without pause. The darkness of space glowed with explosions and fire. Wreckage floated everywhere, pieces of ships from both sides tumbling slowly through the void. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Sovereign Wrath, blood running down the side of his face. An explosion had shattered a console 20 minutes ago. Pieces of metal had cut his skin, but he refused to leave his post. Around him, the surviving crew worked in smoke and chaos, fighting to keep the flagship alive. "Hull breach on Deck 7, an officer reported. "Seal it," ordered. "We've lost Engine 3. Redirect power from Engines 1 and 2. Weapons Bay 4 is on fire. Extinguish it and keep firing." Would not stop, he could not stop. Somewhere out there, millions were watching and praying. His fleet was their only hope. He would not fail them. On the destroyer Indomitable, Captain faced a crisis. Her ship had taken too much damage. Weapons were failing. Shields were gone. A cruiser was moving toward her, preparing to deliver the killing shot. Made a decision in half a second. "All hands brace for impact," she announced over the speakers. Then she gave an order that the never expected, ramming speed. The Indomitable's engines roared to full power. The damaged destroyer shot forward like an arrow, straight at the cruiser. The enemy ship tried to turn, tried to escape, but it was too slow. The Indomitable hit the cruiser at full speed, crashing through its hull in a terrible explosion of metal and fire. Both ships died in that moment, but did not die. She and 40 of her crew made it to escape pods before the impact. They floated in the debris field, watching the remains of their ship and the destroyed enemy cruiser tumble past them. "Captain," a young sailor said through the radio, "we have no weapons. What do we do?" Looked at the battle around her. Human ships were still fighting, still winning. "We wait," she said, "and we trust our friends to finish this." Commander did not wait. His Marines were already moving. A carrier had moved too close to the Sovereign Wrath, saw an opportunity. Within minutes, he and 200 Marines were in boarding shuttles, racing through the battle toward the enemy ship. The shuttles crashed through the carrier's hull like fists through paper. Marines poured out, weapons blazing. They had never faced humans in close combat before. They did not know what was coming. They were big, strong. They had 4 arms and skin like stone, but humans were fast, ruthless. They had trained for this since childhood. Every Marine knew how to fight, how to kill, how to survive against any enemy. Led the charge himself. He moved through the enemy ship like a storm, his rifle spitting fire, his boots stepping over fallen enemies. They tried to stop him. They failed. They tried to surround him. He broke through. They tried to trap him in a corridor. He blew a hole in the wall and kept going. "Push forward," shouted to his soldiers. "Take the bridge, kill anyone who tries to stop you." The Marines obeyed. They fought through the carrier level by level, room by room. The defenders fell back, terrified by these small creatures who refused to die, who kept coming no matter how many times they were hit. Within an hour, the carrier was captured. Stood on its bridge, surrounded by bodies, his armor covered in blood that was not his own. He activated the ship's communication system and sent a message to the fleet. "This ship now belongs to the United Earth Command," he said simply. "Who wants to be next?" Warlord watched the message from his throne and felt something he had never felt in his entire life. Fear. His fleet was being destroyed. His ships were burning. His soldiers were dying. And the humans, those primitive, worthless animals, would not stop. They fought like demons. They attacked like predators. They treated death as just another weapon. "Warlord," his first officer said, his voice shaking, "we have lost 40 ships. Morale is collapsing. The captains are requesting permission to retreat." Wanted to scream. He wanted to order them all to fight to the death. But he looked at the battle data and saw the truth. If he stayed, he would lose everything. His entire fleet would be destroyed. The Empire would be crippled. "All ships," ordered through gritted teeth, "begin withdrawal. We are leaving this system." But Admiral had no intention of letting him escape. "The flagship is trying to run," Lieutenant Wu reported. "The Eternal Dominion is moving toward the edge of the system." Nodded slowly. His face was hard. "All available ships, concentrate fire on the flagship. That warlord wanted a war. We will show him how humans end wars." 32 human ships turned together. They were damaged, wounded, running on emergency power. But they formed a perfect line and aimed their weapons at the Eternal Dominion. Every gun, every missile, every torpedo pointed at the fleeing flagship. On the Eternal Dominion, watched the humans surround him. He screamed at his crew to go faster, to escape, to save him. But the human ships were already firing. The first wave of missiles hit the flagship's shields and shattered them. The second wave hit the hull, tearing great holes in the metal. The third wave reached the engines and blew them apart. The Eternal Dominion stopped moving. It hung in space, burning and dying. Admiral opened a communication channel one last time. "Warlord, you came to this system to destroy innocent people. You threatened my world. You laughed at my offer of mercy." He paused. "I am not laughing." Appeared on the screen. His face was twisted with fear and hatred. "You will pay for this," he hissed. "The Empire will destroy your world. We will burn your cities. We will." "You will do nothing," interrupted. "You are already dead, you just don't know it yet." He ended the transmission and gave the final order. "All ships, fire at will." The human fleet unleashed everything they had left. Hundreds of weapons hit the Eternal Dominion at the same time. The flagship lit up like a second sun, fire pouring from every section. For a moment, it held together. Then it broke apart in a massive explosion that could be seen from Prime. Warlord, conqueror of 17 worlds, died in the vacuum of space, surrounded by the remains of his broken ship. The remaining vessels fled. They did not look back. They did not try to fight. They ran into hyperspace and disappeared, leaving behind the burning wreckage of their fleet and their pride. 53 ships escaped. 67 were destroyed or captured. The humans had lost 19 ships. Thousands of sailors and soldiers were dead. The survivors were wounded, exhausted, and running on nothing but willpower. But they had won. Admiral looked at the planet below. Prime was still burning, but the blockade was gone. Human were already preparing to descend, carrying doctors, engineers, food, and supplies. "Send a message to the surface," ordered quietly. "Tell them the war is over. Tell them they are safe now." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was heavy with emotion. "Tell them humanity came." The first human soldiers landed on Prime as the sun rose over the ruined capital. They came down in heavy, their engines kicking up ash and dust. When the doors opened, the soldiers stepped out carrying not weapons, but medical supplies. Ambassador watched from the mouth of the cave where his people had hidden. He had expected conquerors. He had expected soldiers who would demand payment, who would claim ownership of his world, who would replace one master with another. Instead, he saw humans setting up tents, humans carrying children to safety, humans sharing food with strangers they had never met. He walked toward them slowly, unsure of what to say. A human soldier noticed him and stopped. The soldier was young, maybe 20 years old, with tired eyes and dirt on his face. He had probably fought in the battle just hours ago. "Are you injured?" the soldier asked. Shook his head. "No, I am ambassador. I sent the message, the call for help." The soldier's face changed. He smiled, and it was a warm smile full of genuine happiness. "Sir, it's an honor to meet you. Because of your message, we're here. You saved your people." "No," said quietly. "You saved my people. We did nothing but beg." The soldier shook his head. "That's not nothing, sir. You reached out. You hoped. That's the bravest thing anyone can do when everything seems lost." Before could respond, another soldier called out. A shuttle was landing nearby, larger than the others. Important people were arriving. Admiral walked down the ramp. His uniform was torn. There were bandages on his head and arm. He looked like a man who had walked through fire and refused to fall. Behind him came Captain, rescued from her escape pod, and Lieutenant Wu, and Chief Engineer and Commander, the heroes of the battle. Approached, the ambassador was taller than him, with silver skin and glowing blue eyes. They were so different, these two beings, different species from different stars, and yet in that moment they understood each other perfectly. Ambassador said, "I am Admiral of the United Earth Command. We received your message." Bowed deeply, his four arms pressed together in the traditional gesture of respect. "Admiral, I do not have words to thank you. You sacrificed so much. Your soldiers died for us. Why did you come?" Looked at the burning city behind. He looked at the people emerging from caves and ruins, their eyes filled with tears and wonder. He looked at the children being carried by human soldiers, the elderly being given food, the wounded being treated by doctors. "Because you asked," said simply. "Because someone had to help, and because we chose to be the ones who answer when no one else will." Wept, he could not stop himself. Tears flowed from his blue eyes and fell to the ash-covered ground. "We are in your debt forever. Whatever you need, whatever you want, we will give it." Shook his head. "We need nothing. We want nothing. Just rebuild your world, live in peace. Remember that you are not alone in this galaxy." He paused. "And if anyone threatens you again, call us. We will come." Far away, in the halls of the Galactic Assembly, panic had taken hold. Representatives from 100 species gathered in the great chamber, their voices raised in fear and anger. The news from Prime had spread across the galaxy like fire. The humans, the primitives, had defeated the Empire. They had done what no assembly member had dared to do. And now those same humans were sending a representative to speak. When appeared on the holographic screen, the chamber fell silent. She was older, with hair and calm eyes. She did not look like a warrior. She looked like a grandmother, but her voice, when she spoke, carried power. "Members of the Galactic Assembly," she began, "you heard the cry for help. You did nothing. You watched from your comfortable worlds while innocent people burned. You told yourselves it was not your problem. You told yourselves they were too strong." She paused, letting her words sink in. Humanity heard the same cry, and we answered with everything we had. We lost 19 ships. Thousands of our children will never come home. Our families will mourn for years. Her voice hardened. We paid the price you were afraid to pay. We did the right thing while you watched. The assembly members shifted uncomfortably. Some could not meet her eyes. "You call us primitives," continued. "You call us savages. You say we are too aggressive, too violent, too dangerous to be trusted. Maybe you are right. Maybe we are all those things. But we are also the only ones who came when help was needed. We are the only ones who stood up to evil while you hid." She leaned forward, and her eyes seemed to look at every representative at once. "Call us whatever you want. Reject our membership. Condemn our actions. But remember this day. Remember that when your worlds face destruction, when your people scream for salvation, we were the ones who answered, and we did not ask for your permission." The transmission ended. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy changed. The Empire, broken and humiliated from 3 sectors they had conquered. Occupied species began to rebel, inspired by the human victory. The warlords fought each other for control, blaming one another for the disaster at Prime. They began rebuilding. Human engineers helped repair their cities. Human doctors healed their wounded. Human teachers worked with scholars to share knowledge. The 2 species, once strangers, became friends. And across the stars, other suffering species began to send messages. Quiet transmissions, hidden from the assembly, reaching toward a distant world called Earth. They had heard about the humans. They had heard about the fleet that answered a stranger's cry. They dared to hope. Admiral returned to Earth 3 months after the battle. He was given medals and honors. His name was written in history books. Children learned his story in schools, but did not feel like a hero. He felt the weight of the dead on his shoulders. Every soldier who fell, every sailor who burned, every ship that exploded, he carried them all. Captain was promoted and given command of a new ship, the Unyielding Spirit. Lieutenant Wu received his own vessel, a fast destroyer named the Silent Calculation. Chief Engineer retired to teach the next generation of builders. Commander continued training Marines, preparing them for the battles that might come. They all knew this was just the beginning. They would return someday. Other threats would emerge. The galaxy was vast and full of darkness. But humanity had proven something important. They had proven that strength was not just about weapons and ships. True strength was the courage to act when action was hard. True strength was risking everything for strangers. True strength was answering a cry for help when everyone else turned away. On the last night before the fleet left Prime, Ambassador found Admiral standing alone on a hill, looking up at the stars. The sky was clear now, no longer filled with smoke. The moons glowed soft and silver. "You are leaving," said. "Yes, our work here is done. Your people can rebuild on their own now." Stood beside him. "May I ask you one more question, Admiral?" "Of course." "When you came here, you knew you might die. You knew your ships might all be destroyed. You knew Earth itself might face revenge from the..." Paused. "Were you afraid?" Was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Yes, I was afraid every moment, every second." "Then how did you do it? How did you keep fighting? Looked at the ambassador. In the moonlight, they were just two beings standing together under an infinite sky, two lives among billions. And yet, that connection mattered. That moment of understanding mattered. Because some things are more important than fear, said. Because I would rather die doing the right thing than live knowing I did nothing. And because, he smiled faintly, because that is what it means to be human. Nodded slowly, he understood. The next morning the human fleet departed. Their ships rose from the surface and formed up in orbit. Then, one by one, they jumped into hyperspace and disappeared. The watched them go. They waved, they cheered, they wept. An ambassador stood alone on that same hill, looking up at the sky where the humans had vanished. Thank you, he whispered to the stars. Thank you for answering. Somewhere out there, racing through dimensions beyond understanding, Admiral and his fleet flew home. They had done something that would be remembered forever. They had shown the galaxy that hope was real. And they knew, deep in their hearts, that this was only the beginning of humanity's journey among the stars. The end.